is King Akhenaten? King Akhenaten is one of the kings in the 18th dynasty who ruled ancient Egypt from 1353 B.C. 1336 B.C. His name means living spirit of Aten, and also became known as Amenhotep IV, Akhenaten, Akhenaten, and Khenaten. He ruled Egypt after his father Pharaoh's Amenhotep III's death at the end of his 38-year reign. He was the second son of Amenhotep III and his wife Queen Tiye. Akhenaten wasn't next in line to be a successor king until the death of his older brother Thutmose. King Akhenaten was known as Heretic King. He unified the old gods in only one god Aten, sun disk. He left his capital Thebes that supports Amun to his new city that's made it his new capital Horizon of Aten in modern Amarna, and he orders to cut the name of Amun from his temples in all of Egypt. He was ruled an empire that dominates Palestine, Phoenicia, and Nubia. He was busy with his new religious, interested in poetry for his new god and ignored his empire. He lost some of it in Asia. He was married to who helped him with his new religious. They considered themselves to be in between God and people. King Akhenaten was known as a heretic king. He declared monotheism and banned polytheism as he unified the old gods in only one god Aten, the sun disk. He left his capital Thebes that worshipped Amun to his new city Amarna, which became the new capital Horizon of Aten, and he ordered to cut the name of Amun from his temples in all of Egypt. He ruled an empire that dominates Palestine, Phoenicia, and Nubia. He was busy with his new religious revolution, interested in writing poetry and building temples for his new god, and ignored his empire, and as a result, he lost a big portion of it in Asia. He was married to Queen Nefertiti, who helped him with his new religious revolution, which they considered themselves to be the connection between the gods and the people. King Akhenaten's family. King Akhenaten family. Many historians theorized that he suffered from Marfan syndrome, which is basically a genetic defect that harms the body's connective tissue and the face, which would explain his unique face features shown across all of his statues. His wife was referred to as one of the most beautiful women in the history of Egypt. He had 6 daughters who also suffered from the same condition. Aside from his main wife and children, there were many wives and children such as Smenkhare, Tutankhamun, and Ankhesenamun, who were Tutankhamun's wife. King Akhenaten achievement. The main purpose of declaring monotheism by Akhenaten was to create a cultural shift by uniting the Egyptian public under the sun disk god Aten. He wished to end 2,000 years of polytheism in order to end the growing power of the cult of Amun, as they owned more land and had more power than the kings himself. So in order to limit their power and achieve his political agenda, in the 9th year of his reign he outlawed the religion of Amun and declared himself the living incarnation of a single all-powerful deity Aten, the loving, supreme creator, and sustainer of the universe. He also closed all the temples of Amun and the other gods and moved the main capital from Thebes to Amarna, plus he removed all the names of Amun from all over Egypt, but this didn't last for long. Foreign policy of King Akhenaten. He inherited a large kingdom that controlled lands in vast countries such as Palestine, Phoenicia, and Nubia, but failed in creating any diplomatic connection with other countries. There is evidence of his negligence of maintaining any diplomatic and friendly connection with his allies, called Amarna letters. He paid no regard to develop his kingdom and spent his time creating art and poetry for his new god. His attempted to make Aten the only god in Egypt failed miserably, and when his son Tutankhamun took over he made Amun the main deity of Egypt and Thebes returned to act as the main capital. When did King Akhenaten die? He died in 1336 B.C. in his new city, in the tomb of Mary II. After his death, they cleared his city, and all people left the city of Thebes and returned to the ancient again and to Amun. The statue of King Akhenaten located in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Who is Queen Nefertari? Queen Nefertari is one of Egypt's greatest queens. She was a member of the 19th dynasty in the New Kingdom, 1550 to 1070 BC. And the beloved main wife of the great pharaoh Ramses II, aka Ramses the Great, 1303 to 1213 BC. She was the favorite queen of the king and his first wife. He married her before he sat on the throne of Egypt. She was not a king daughter, but she was a woman of true nobility. The king married her while she was 13 years old, while he was 15 years old. Ramses has around 200 children but only 6 children from Nefertari, 4 sons Amun-Her-Kapeshef, Per-Herwenimef, Miriadem and Merier, and 2 daughters Meridamen and Hennetai. The best titles of the Queen Nefertari. Queen Nefertari is the symbol of beauty in Egypt. Nefertari means the beautiful companion believer of Mut, plus she has many titles like Sweet of Love, Bride of God, Lady of the Two Lands, King's Great Wife, and God's Wife. When did Queen Nefertari die? She died in 1256 BC at an age of around 40 or 50 years old. Ramses II built her the most beautiful and largest tomb in the Valley of the Queens. Her tomb is a true example of masterful decorations and a pure reflection of the importance of women during the ancient Egyptian civilization. It was decorated in enchanting colors and well-preserved wall paintings of her usual daily life, poetry, and holy text from the Book of the Dead. Her mummy and sarcophagus were stolen by tomb raiders, but the Egyptian Museum still contains some remains of her tomb. Temple of Nefertari in Abu Simbel. Ramses II showcased his love and devotion to Nefertari by building her a temple in Abu Simbel temples just 100 meters away from his grand temple. It was the smallest one that was dedicated to Hathor, goddess of joy, love, and happiness, which shows a great statue for her, Ramses, and the gods. Who is Queen Nefertiti? Queen Nefertiti is known to be one of the most famous, beautiful, and powerful queens in the history of ancient Egypt. Her name means a beautiful woman has come. She was one of the queens in the 18th dynasty of ancient Egypt and had various titles during her life, such as the Lady of Grace, Great of Praises, Mistress of Upper and Lower Egypt, the Lady of the Two Lands, Main King's Wife, and the Beloved of Akhenaten. When did Queen Nefertiti get the throne of Egypt? Queen Nefertiti started her legacy as the wife of the pharaoh Akhenaten, 1353 to 1336 BC, who took the throne of Egypt after his father's Amenhotep III death when she was only 15 years old. She ruled side by side with her husband, who also relatively the same age. Some believe she was from foreign country, possibly Syria, while others believe she was the daughter of a high official called I. What did Queen Nefertiti do with her husband? Queen Nefertiti stood side by side with her husband when he attempted to end the polytheistic religious tradition of Egypt to a monotheistic system. He shifted the worship of Amun to the new only one god Aten, the sun disk, and she changed her name to Nefer-Neferutin, which means the beautiful of Aten, and she moved with him to his new capital Akhenaten in El Amarna. She ruled Egypt next to her husband, and many wall paintings, decorations, and artifacts are shown set on the throne, wearing the crown. She had 6 daughters from Akhenaten. The most famous was Ankhesenpeten, who married her half-brother Tutankhamun. The end of her life. Queen Nefertiti at some point disappeared from power, and her daughter Meridaten has got the queening throne of Egypt and after the 12th year of Akhenaten's rule. The condition of her death is also under a great debate, which completely disappeared from the historical records. The location of Nefertari's tomb is a complete mystery, as there are 2 mummies under the names of the Elder Lady and the Younger Lady located within the Valley of the Kings, and one of them is considered to be her true body, but no one knows exactly which one. The famous bust of Nefertiti. The Nefertiti bust is a painted stucco-coated limestone carving of her beautiful face. This artifact has been crafted in 1345 BC by the famous sculptor Thutmose, as it was found in his workshop in the city of Aten Amarna in 1912 by a German archaeologist called Ludwig Borchardt, and it now resides in the Museum of Berlin. It is highly important and famous for its enchanting beauty, plus it showcases the ancient Egyptians' understanding of crafting realistic facial proportions and artistic expression and techniques. Who is King Ramses II? King Ramses II is one of the greatest pharaohs who ever ruled Egypt. He is known as Ramesses the Great. One of his most famous names is the Ozymandias, which is Greek for the first part of his name, which reads, "The Mad of Ra is powerful, chosen of Ra." His legacy began as the 3rd king of the 19th dynasty, 1292 to 1186 BCE. He was born in 1303 BC to his father Pharaoh Seti I and his mother Queen Tuya. He was second in command during his father's military campaigns in Nubia, Libya, and Palestine when he was just 14 years old, and when he reached the age 22 years old, He was leading his own campaigns with his sons, Khemweser and Amunhirwenameth. Ramses was a great emperor known for his endless ambition, wisdom, and vision. When did Ramses II get the throne of Egypt? After the death of his father, Ramses took the thrones of Egypt in 1279 B.C. at the age of 25 years old, and his reign lasted for 66 years until 1213 BC. He was a brilliant military leader who protected his empire against various enemies like Hittites, Libyans, Syrians, and Nubians. He led his army, which reached to 100,000 men during his era, to many campaigns to Nubia and Levant to expand his empire and to rebuild the glory of the Egyptian empire through taking control of many cities in the Levant. Plus, he warns the Hittites about their unwise hostile actions toward Egypt, which started the Battle of Kadesh in 1274 BC between Ramses II and the Hittites in the city of Kadesh, which became one of the oldest battles in ancient Egyptian history. The battle is known to be the best documented battle on all of ancient history. No one won in this battle, but both sides claimed victory, which made both sides created the first documented peace treaty in history. What are the best works of King Ramses II? He constructed a new city in the Nile River Delta, called Paramus, to be his home while being at war with the Hittites. Ramses is considered to be the second longest ruling king in the history of Egypt for 67 years after the 6th dynasty pharaoh Pepi II, who lasted for 90 years. He is also known as a great builder. During his reign, he constructed many temples and rebuilt and enlarged many of his ancestors' buildings, such as Amenhotep III Temple in Luxor, which holds the Hall of Columns in Karnak Temple, and many more. He desired to immortalize legacy by building his own temples. The largest temple was found in the west bank of the river, which is the Ramesseum Temple, that shows his campaigns to Nubia and his great achievements, but unfortunately, it was devoured by time and what remains is but small insignificant remains. He built Abu Simbel temples, which acted as the back gate and the final frontier of the Egyptian kingdom from the deep southern border that contains 2 temples. The bigger one for him decorated with his battle victories and achievements, while the smaller one was for his wife Nefertari. His name was mentioned on every temple. Colossal statues and monuments were made in his era. When did King Ramses II die? King Ramses II was a great and powerful king who had about 200 wives. The most famous of them was his beloved main wife Nefertari, and had about 111 sons and 51 daughters. He died in 1213 BC at the age of 90 years old. His body was found in Valley of Kings in Luxor, then it was moved to the Egyptian Museum and then to the Grand Egyptian Museum in Cairo, like his great statue that was moved from Ramses Square to the entrance of the new Gem Museum. Who is King Tutankhamun? King Tutankhamun, 1334 BC 1325 BC, is an Egyptian king from the 18th dynasty of the New Kingdom, 1570 to 1050 BC. He's also known as Tutankhamun, which means the living image of God Amun. He is considered to be one of the youngest kings who ever ruled ancient Egypt, as he was only 9 years old when he took Egypt's throne after the death of his father Akhenaten. He ruled Egypt in a transitory period after his father tried to enforce monotheism by uniting the multi-gods in the one god Aten, the sun disk god. He also moved his capital from Thebes to his new city, the horizon of Aten Amarna. During Tut's reign, some of the revolutions happened, like Tel el Amarna, that demanded the return of the old gods once more. His wife was Enkisenpeten, which means her life is from Aten. She was his half-sister from Akhenaten and Nefertiti. Tut was the son of Akhenaten, and Lady Kia one of Akhenaten's wives. When was the tomb of King Tutankhamun discovered? King Tutankhamun didn't live the life of a king like most of his previous predecessors. He didn't leave any worthy achievements after his death in his early life of 19 years. He was remembered for his death more than his life, as his great very preserved tomb, which was discovered in 1922 in the Valley of the Kings, contained his mummy and 1,000 treasures, which all of them were shown for the first time in 2010 in the Egyptian Museum, but will soon be transported to the new Grand Museum that will open soon. It showcases his famous mega coffins, his golden mask, and all the other treasures found in his tomb. That's why a lot of tourists prefer to visit it as a part of their trip to Egypt. How the tomb of King Tutankhamun was discovered. The great discovery of King's Tut tomb can be traced back to the partnership between a gifted Egyptologist and archaeologist called Howard Carter and the 5th Earl of Carnarvon, who inspired the most famous archaeological discovery of all time, Tutankhamun tomb in 1914. Lord Carnarvon hired Carter to discover the ancient tomb of King Tutankhamun. Lord Carnarvon spent various years attempting to locate the tomb but wasn't successful, which led him to hire Carter due to his supervising excavations within the Temple of Hatshepsut in Luxor and his usage of advanced methods of archaeology and recording. They both believed that the tomb of Tutankhamun was simply forgotten, and it's time the world remembers the name of King Tutankhamun once again. On November 4, 1922, while systematically investigating a line of huts, the young water boy stumbled on a stone T. Had appeared to be the top of a flight of steps cut into the bedrock, so after clearing the debris and starting a slow, careful excavation, a sunken staircase was discovered leading to a mud-plastered doorway, which carried the royal seals of King Tut. What is King's Tut Pharaoh's curse? People from all over the world seem to pay more attention to the mystical phenomenon known as the Pharaoh's curse, which states that anyone who disturbs the final rest of the pharaoh shall meet his final demise. Lord Carnarvon died 5 months directly after the discovery that led to the birth of various supernatural speculations, which remain only speculations, as out of the 58 people who were present, only 8 passed away within a couple of years, and the rest lived very peaceful lives, like Howard Carter, who passed away at the age of 64 in 1939. Many scholars believe that curse is nothing more than a series of traps filled with deadly gas, chemical, bacterial, or even radiation. Death of King Tutankhamun. The death of King Tutankhamun is an immortal mystery, as it's unusual for pharaohs' kings to die at this early age. He suffered from countless disabilities and diseases that made researchers and scientists search in this puzzle for countless years. They found a hole in his skull and fracture in his leg, which indicates he was in an accident or was probably murdered. What makes King Tutankhamun tomb so important? The tomb of King Tut is the most preserved and intact tomb in the history of ancient Egyptian archaeology. On February 16, 1923, the tomb was opened for the first time and about 5.398 items were found, which Carter took 10 years to fully document, like Tut's magical golden face mask, the inner coffin of 3 sarcophagus made of 450 pounds of solid gold, his dagger, which was made from a fallen meteorite, archery bow, golden chariot, and various marvelous items. Who is King Khufu? King Khufu is considered one of the most important kings who ruled Egypt during the ancient Egyptian period. He ruled Egypt from 2589 BC to 2566 BC during the Old Kingdom of Egypt, 2686 to 2150 BC. He was the son of King Seneferu and Queen Hetepheres, and succeeded his father on the throne of Egypt and became the second king of the 4th dynasty. He married 2 queens by the name of Meridis and Hanutzin and had 9 sons and 15 daughters. King Khufu history. King Khufu was known in Greek as King Cheops, who is regarded as one of the most important monarchs in ancient Egypt history, as he was responsible for creating the Great Pyramid of Giza, one of the 7 wonders of the world and the true motto of ancient Egypt. His full name was Khnum Khufu, which means Khnum protects me, as Khnum was the ancient Egyptian ram-headed deity of procreation, water, and fertility. King Khufu Cheops has no status at all except for a small statue 7.5 cm. Achievements of King Khufu. 1. The Great Pyramid of Giza. The Great Pyramid of Giza was built in 20 years, between 2580 and 2560 BC, which stood 480 feet 146.7 m tall. It was designed by Humayunu with the usage of 2.3 million limestones each, weighing 25 tons, and more than 100,000 workforces in changing shifts. It remained the tallest man-made structure in the entire world for nearly 4,000 years. King Khufu believed the Great Pyramid was his stairway to heaven, where he would join his rightful place with the gods. The Great Pyramid was the first of its kind, as the sides were smooth, as opposed to having steps, plus the sides perfectly corresponded to the cardinal points of a compass. King Khufu believed the Great Pyramid was his own gate to paradise, as it held his own tomb in the king's chamber. The accurate architectural design of the pyramid on both the exterior and interior remains a true mystery that attracts people from all over the world until our current day. 2. Solar Boat. The solar boat of King Khufu is the most unique artifact not only in Egypt but in the entire world. It's one of the oldest, largest, and best preserved monuments in history as it dates back to more than 4.500 years. It is identified as the world's oldest intact ship, which has been described as a masterpiece of woodcraft that could sail today if put into water. The boat is able to showcase the advanced navigation and craftsman skills and technology of the era. The purpose of the boat was to sail King Khufu through the afterlife across the galaxy all the way to heaven. The boat was one of two discovered in 1954, which was built with a flat bottom composed of several planks that were reconstructed from 1,224 pieces. It is now located at the Grand Egyptian Museum. If you prefer to visit the Great Pyramid of King Khufu or many archaeological sites in Egypt, then you can visit our Egypt tour packages and choose your favorite trip to the land of pharaohs. Who is Queen Hatshepsut? Queen Hatshepsut, whose name means foremost of noble women, is one of the greatest rulers of ancient Egypt. She was the fifth pharaoh of the 18th dynasty. In 1508 BC, Hatshepsut was born to King Thutmose I and his wife Queen Ahmose to be his elder daughter and her grandfather, King Ahmose. She ruled beside her father, despite the ancient Egyptian rejecting the notion of women ruling them, and learned a great deal from him, which would explain how she became one of the most successful rulers in the history of ancient Egypt. How she got the throne of Egypt? Queen Hatshepsut's reign as the queen started when she married her half-brother Thutmose II in 1492 BC, who was the son of Thutmose I from a minor wife, Lady Mutnofret. He was a man of weak character and poor health, so Hatshepsut ruled Egypt in the name of the king as his wife. Hatshepsut had only one daughter from her husband Thutmose II Neferure. Hatshepsut was elevated to the stature of God's wife of Amun, the second highest position for a woman in ancient Egypt after the queen. Hatshepsut was preparing herself to be the pharaoh after her husband died, but after Thutmose II's death, the Egyptians rejected the idea of the women ruling them as a queen, so they made Thutmose III the king, who was only 2 years old at the time, and Hatshepsut ruled as regent to her stepson. Thutmose III was the son of Thutmose II from his minor wife Isis. Hatshepsut had influential supporters, including Senenmut, her chief minister, who helped her to be the true pharaoh with the full authority of a king. She orders to be portrayed with a beard and muscles and appeared in traditional female regalia. Queen Hatshepsut era was prosperous and peaceful as she made friendships with neighboring countries using trade with the help of great ships. She sent many of the seaborne trading expeditions to the kingdom of Apunt and to the Atlantic Ocean, which returned with gold, baboons, myrrh, ebony, wild animals, and more treasures. She also sent many military campaigns to Syria and Nubia. She made her stepson Thutmose III a leader to many of campaigns, protecting the country and expanding the Egyptian empire. While she managed the affairs of the country, she married him to her daughter Neferure, who was given the title of God's wife of Amun. Works of Queen Hatshepsut. Queen Hatshepsut sought to immortalize her legacy by constructing a number of incredible constructions, like all the great Egyptian pharaohs. She ordered the build of a temple at Deir el-Bahri, which is considered to be one of the most beautiful temples in the world, which was designed by her chief minister Senenmut. The Hatshepsut Temple is a perfect enchanting example of the ancient Egyptian classical architecture and holds truly majestic carvings and artworks. The temple honors the gods, especially the creator god Amun. She orders the construction of most of the obelisks located in El-Karnak Temple, plus she remodeled the hypostyle hall of her father and added 2 obelisks. The marvelous unfinished obelisk was ordered by construction and was able to reveal a great deal about the construction methods of that era. How did Hatshepsut die? She died in 1458 BC while she was in her mid-40s. She died from an abscess following tooth extraction and also suffered from diabetes plus bone cancer in her last days. She resizes her father's tomb so they can be buried with her father in the Valley of the Kings. Who was King Chephren? King Khafre aka King Chephren is one of the most important kings of the 4th dynasty kings in ancient Egyptian history. He is the son of King Khufu, the builder of the Great Pyramid of Giza. He ruled Egypt from 2558 BC to 2532 BC during the Old Kingdom, 2686 to 2150 BC. His name means the appearing of Ra. He had many wives, but his main wife was Queen Mirsiank and 12 sons and 3 daughters. He desired to continue his father's legacy, so he constructed the second largest pyramid at the Giza complex. He also constructed the Great Valley Temple and the legendary Sphinx. Pyramid of Chephren. The second pyramid of the Giza complex was constructed during the 4th dynasty in 2540 BC. The Egyptian name of the pyramid is Wer-n, Khafre, which means Khafre is great. It was constructed out of Tural limestone blocks each weighing 2 tons with some pink granite slabs in the inner structure, which reaches the height of 448 feet, on a base of 215.5 meters, 706 feet. The Great Sphinx of Chephren. There is the Great Sphinx, which is a mythological creature with a body of a lion and a human face, and it has been built to guard the area and protect it from tombs of robbers. It stands at the height of 240 feet, 73 meters, long and 66 feet, 20 m. It is believed to hold the face of Khafre King Chephren and can be found within the plateau in front of the Great Second Pyramid. The Sphinx is surrounded by many questions, mysteries, and a number of unanswered questions about its true age, origin, and purpose. The Valley Temple of Chephren. The blocks of the Valley Temple are made of red granite and still remain in a very good state of preservation until today. Also, there are big statues of King Chephren that have been discovered at the Valley Temple, and they are now located at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Those statues are made out from diorite, which is a very hard material to carve, and all statues are protecting the main deity during the ancient Egyptian period. Who is King Menes? King Menes is the founder of the 1st dynasty in the history of ancient Egypt and the last king of the pre-dynastic period, 600 to 3150 BCE. In 3150 BC, he was able to unify both Upper and Lower Egypt as shown on the legendary Narmer palette. His name means the one who endures, and his reign lasted for 62 years. He married a princess to consolidate his power, Princess Neithotep of Naqada. Many believe he inherited the throne from the god of victory and protection Horus. Egypt during the era of King Menes. Before that period, Egypt was divided into 2 kingdoms, Upper Egypt in the south and Lower Egypt in the north, and there was a crowned king for each part and a series of wars between them, until King Menes, the king of Lower Egypt, put an end to that and defeated the king of Upper Egypt and crowned himself as a king of the 2 lands, both Upper and Lower Egypt, and created the first centralized monarchy. After the unification of both lands, King Narmer changed the capital of Egypt to be in Abydos. He sends many military expeditions all across Egypt and neighboring countries such as Canaan and Nubia. He built new cities like the city of Memphis. A new wave of urbanization spread through ancient Egypt, and a great deal of attention was put to developing the art of writing. He is noted for developing the notion of luxury, as the Egyptians created many lavish hobbies to fill their time after uniting the land, such as sports, brewing beer, carving, sculpting, cultivating gardens, and various others. What is Narmer palettes? King Menes commemorated the victory of Upper Egypt over Lower Egypt in his famous palette, which called Narmer palette, which is made out of schist and discovered from Heracnopolis. Works of King Menes. When Egypt was unified, King Narmer instituted religious practices, formalized beliefs. His reign was so prosperous he ruled for about 26 years. King Narmer cared so much about hobbies and developed it like carving, sculpting, and sports. It's important to mention that Egypt flourished a lot under his reign. Where is tomb of King Menes founded? His tomb is found at Quaib nearby Abydos in Upper Egypt. It is consisting of 2 joined chambers. It's built out of mud bricks. The tomb holds 2 necropolis seals that prove his identity as the ruler of the 1st dynasty.